Hello, and welcome once again to the Dental Marketing Mastery Series. This podcast is brought to you by dentalwebcontent.com and New Patients Incorporated. I'm Howie Horrocks, the founder of New Patients Incorporated. Along with me once again is my friend and partner and the president of New Patients Incorporated, Mark Dilatush. Hello, Mark. How are you doing today?
All right, Howie. How's things in Las Vegas?
Yeah, they're just fine.
Just fine. All right. I'll take your word for it. It's August, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's hot.
All right. Just checking.
We're going to talk today. I guess the topic is biggest mistakes that we've seen over the years that dentists make in regards to their marketing.
Yeah, I always wanted to write a book, like 50 ways to make sure that you'll always be frustrated at your marketing.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, and I think mistakes. It's probably too harsh, because it's not like there was a cookbook available to them and they could read it and then they made a mistake. There's no cookbook, right? So
yeah,
we can call it a mistake, but I guess it's a gigantic list of things that you should rethink or do differently.
or pitfalls.
Pitfalls. There you go. Okay. So, because normally when I start talking about mistakes, I sound differently than you do. You make mistakes sound like a bouquet of fresh flowers, and I make them sound like, I don't know, a bowling ball in tar or something. So,
Okay.
So we're not trying to, for the whole audience, when we say mistake, we're saying honest mistakes, things you didn't know, right? You didn't know you were making a mistake, obviously. So, but they're very consistent, right? Howie, we see them, we see the same mistakes over and over on a consistent basis for year over year, decades over decades. So let's start at the very, 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 very beginning. And I mean, the biggest mistake is still there. It hasn't gone away, and that is doctors not calculating and not adhering to a consistent marketing budget. I think that's definitely numero uno.
Yeah, it is. And Dennis, we get this all the time. What should my marketing budget be? Okay. Well, that's part of the same mistake. They don't know it, or they don't know how to figure it.
Right.
We're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. And another big mistake is that the budget is viewed often as where my money went last month instead of where should it have gone or where do I want it to go in the future.
Right.
And that's another part of the same mistake.
Right. So let's first define budget. Budget is what you plan to spend. A budget is not what you spent last month. A budget is like you would budget for your rent. You would budget for your payroll. You would budget for, you have a business. You know that your payroll should be whatever, somewhere around 24, 25%. You know your supplies should be X. You know your rent should be a certain percentage of your total revenues. That's budgeting. A marketing budget is a doctor saying, I am planning on spending, and here's the number, and this is a general number, but it served thousands of dentists wonderfully well for 27 years. 5% of trailing 12-month revenues to 5% of goal revenues. So, using an easy example, let's say that we have a $600,000 practice. They did $600,000 in the last 12 months. So you multiply that times 5% and you come up with $30,000. Okay, $30,000 is the lowest range of your marketing budget moving forward. So you say to yourself, all right, well, if I'm doing 600,000, where do I want to get to? What do I want? What's the goal for my marketing budget? And the goal for my marketing budget, let's just say, is to get to 800,000. It's a lofty goal. 33% growth is a ridiculously high goal, but okay, let's just use it as an example. So I have a practice that wants to go from 600,000 to 800,000. So the bottom of my marketing budget is $30,000 for the whole year, and the top end is 5% of $800,000 or $40,000. So my budget range for the whole next 12 months is somewhere between 30,000 and 40,000. And what that tells me is I'm not going to spend under 30 and I'm not going to go over 40. So a budget keeps you in line. It keeps you contained. It gives you structure. It gives you consistency. It makes it so that you know the money is there. You've already allocated to marketing. It's great. It's a wonderful thing. We have some clients who actually rerun their budget numbers every quarter, just as an exercise. Because if the practice is growing and growing, pretty well, you might not want to wait a year to recalculate your budget. But anyway, so let's get back to the basics. The basics is 5% of trailing 12-month revenues to 5% of goal revenues. That gives you your low and your high for the next 12 months. So that's what almost every dentist listening to this podcast should do for their marketing budget. Small office, large office, you probably won't want to change that percentage until you reach about $1.5 million, maybe 1.75 million. Once you get up to that level, you can start to drop the percentage. But for the sake of this discussion, let's just say independent solo dentist, whatever, $500,000, $600,000 wants to get to 800,000. There's our example. All right. So now the next question is, why? Why would I do that? Why wouldn't I just spend money when it gets slow? So Howie, if I'm a dentist, why wouldn't I just spend money when it got slow and then save money when I was busy?
Well,
why wouldn't I do that?
This presumes that dentists have the money to spend when it's slow. That's usually the problem.
Okay, there you go. That's a good.
The time they need the marketing budget, it isn't there because the times are slow.
Right.
So and then when things are rolling along and the practice is doing fine, that's the last thing they think about is marketing because they don't
Right.
need at that particular point in time.
Right.
And of course, this causes the problem known as the peaks and the valleys, or the roller coaster, or whatever you want to call it. And it's terribly hard on a growing practice, to go through that.
It is. It's stressful on the owner. And I'll add one more thing to the start and stop phenomenon, and why budgeting and having it maintain a consistent level is so vitally important. If you look at, like I have, if you look at dental numbers and performance numbers over the career of a dentist, again, solo, independent dentist, a dentist that starts and stops always spends more money than they had to if they had just been consistent. Because, and here's why. Every time you start a marketing meeting, every time you start or begin to try to get the phone to ring, you have expenses, right? Nobody places an ad for you until you pay them. Nobody's going to build a website for you until you pay them. Nobody's going to do a mail campaign before you pay them. Nobody's going to run radio ads for you until you pay them. And in a lot of cases, you're going to pay up front for 30 days worth of radio ads. Okay. So before you get the phone to ring at the start, that's the key word, at the start of every promotion or advertising program that you go through in your whole career, you are always going to be out more cash than you would have had you just gone through life like the Energizer Bunny beating the drum, just nice and slow and nice and steady. What's that old fable, the turtle and the hare? And the
Yeah.
turtle, yeah, the tortoise and the hare, and the hare was fast, and they had a race, and wouldn't you know, the tortoise won. Well, what Howie and I are saying to you is budgeting and recalculating your budget and making sure it's right for the size of your practice. And we're going to get into using your budget correctly. We're certainly going to get into that. But the first step is being aware, and being aware of what you should be spending before you get to the point of, okay, where should I spend that money? So,
You know,
go ahead, Howie.
I'm sorry. Just to add to that, it also has to do with momentum.
Sure.
Not only is the ROI at the beginning of the campaign non-existent until you get rolling.
Exactly.
It's momentum. I know if you're mailing or you're running anything, radio spots, it doesn't matter what it is.
Even the internet.
Yeah, exactly. That market will begin to grab hold as time goes on, as more impressions land, on the street or on the airwaves or over the internet, and you start to build up some familiarity in your target market. Well, what happens if you just stop? All that goes away very quickly, and then you have to start over and build it up again.
Right.
That's another very hard thing for a practice to go through.
It is, and then that's a great segue into budget allocation. So let's assume that everybody listening to this podcast goes home, grabs their calculator, sits down with their numbers, and calculates their budget. It's very common for the next question to be, all right, what should I spend this on now? Okay, so let's go down the list. First, always first, in every dental office in the country, well, actually any country, is internal. You want to be the dentist who never has an existing patient walk in with 12 brand new veneers that you didn't do. You don't want to be that dentist. And the way to not be that dentist is to just nicely, professionally, on a consistent basis, make sure every existing patient that walks through your doors understands the scope and the breadth of the dentistry that you can provide, not only for them personally, but perhaps their children, perhaps their husband, perhaps their parents who may live nearby, perhaps whatever, an infant even, okay? You never stop for your whole career. You never stop building out your internal promotion portfolio. Now, what do we mean when we say internal promotion? Well, many of them come in electronic form. Lighthouse, PLZ, Smile Reminder, Demand For, so whatever, these electronic systems that mine the data inside your practice management software and go out and communicate with your patient base. That's an example of internal promotion, and it's a good investment. So you would invest a portion, you would allocate a portion of your total budget to internal promotion. Well, once you have your internal promotion going, and usually we will allocate somewhere between 5 and 10% of your total annual budget. So using our example, somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 a year, somewhere in there for the sample practice that we're working with today. And those products fit right in with that. Another thing you can do is reception room loops, silent ones for your flat screen TV in your reception area. Just walk it. You can do snail mail. You can do email. You can do almost anything with that portion of the budget, but keep it somewhere between 5 and 10% of your total marketing budget. Once you have your internal taken care of and identified what you're going to use that money for. Now it's time to go external. And there's two obvious choices that complement each other, like peanut butter and jelly. And they are the internet, your website, and an online promotion, your website, with an offline promotion, properly targeted, properly designed, properly deployed, and delivered direct mail. Those two things, your website and properly targeted and delivered direct mail, work hand in hand to deliver your message to absolutely the right prospective new patient for your office, and either get them to respond immediately without going to your website, or encourage them, yeah, here's your URL, go to my website to check me out even further, and then call from there. Those two work like tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches, like peanut butter and jelly. Like, I don't know, come up with an analogy, Howie, help me out. But
that's enough.
They're yeah, I know, they're simpatico. They're like yin and yang or whatever, right? They work so well together, and you can actually visibly see the impact of an offline promotion and website visits, and then phone calls, and then new business. You can also see through proper tracking phone calls that came in without going to the website first. So it's a incredibly predictable market to market. Predictability is tremendous, and the wonderful part of that is if you target it properly and design it properly, it will almost never wear out. How many clients do we have been mailing with us for over 15 years now?
Oh, many. And some
many.
As long as 20
Yes,
years.
Exactly. Some of them are as long as 20 years. Could you imagine having a marketing medium that doesn't give out, doesn't fade?
Yeah.
Just
No,
keeps going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to update it, obviously,
right.
Annually, or even more often than that. But basically, the medium stays the same.
Right.
And here's another thing that goes along with the three that you mentioned, Mark. I mean, another really nice feature is that these three mediums happen to be the lowest risk marketing.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's why you start with them.
Exactly. So your marketing dollars are not going to be exposed to the risk that would be if you just said, "Oh, hey, the radio guy called me and they're running this great special," and
right.
then you spread your dollars out on radio or TV or some other far more risky medium and run the risk of having it fail completely. But the three that we mentioned, the internal and the website and direct mail properly done, really is you're on the good side, as we'd say in Vegas.
Right.
The odds are.
Yeah, you're on the good side of it. You're the house at that point.
Yeah.
So okay, so now let's take our example: $30,000 to $40,000. Let's just, for the sake of argument, use 40, just so it makes round numbers. All right, so we're going to put 3,000 or 4,000 into internal. That's already going to be allocated to those electronic mediums. Maybe you get some internal brochures. Maybe you have a flat screen production done for your office, and that's all you invest in this year. That's it. So you got about $36,000 left. So a website. What's a website cost? I don't know. A good one, good solid one, $5,000 or $6,000. Fine. That's another thing about budgeting is some of these things you're never going to pay for again. So keep that in mind as we move forward in this conversation, in these podcasts, because it's a wonderful thing to get things done. Okay. So you build your website. Now you have about 30, 28, whatever you have left over for your mail. Or you could also do some SEO. I mean, SEO costs you about 7, so you have about 24 left for mail. So that's how you allocate a 30K to 40K budget. You make sure you're doing some internal, you're doing some internet, you're doing some direct targeted, properly done mail, and they have tracking numbers on them, so you know if they're working or not, and then you deploy them. You deploy them for the next year, and you watch them. And as you watch them, and as you watch your analytics on your website, you're going to see exactly what we're saying you're going to see. You're going to start to see more existing patients getting more work done because they know more of what you do. You're going to see more existing patients referring their family, maybe even their moms and dads. Maybe they have ill-fitting dentures, and maybe they read something that you can help them with, implant-supported dentures, what have you. Because you're doing this internally, you're going to start to do more work from within. You're also going to start to get some calls directly off the mail. You're also going to get a bunch of calls from the mail that went to your website, and they called from there. So you're going to start to actually see these things show up on the report, and then you're going to start seeing them in your bank account. Now, once your first year is under your belt, isn't that the hardest part, Howie? Is that first year, is that building the momentum like you talked about before. It's dentists want it to work now, right? They don't want, many of them don't want to do it right and watch this momentum and watch this ROI and watch the exponential ROI build over a longer period of time. But we're here to tell you, if you're looking for a quick fix, there's about a 95% chance you're going to fail. Because, Howie, is there any real quick way to go out and get good, solid quality new patients on a consistent basis for a dental practice?
No, it's akin to this get rich quick schemes you find on the
Exactly. You can get shoppers.
Now let me point something out. A good deal of your success is going to depend on the dentist to population ratio in your area. If it's very unfavorable to a dental practice, that means there's only 300 humans for each dentist in an area. Then it's going to take a really long time to battle that.
Yeah.
If it's more favorable, say higher than the national average of 1 to 1,650, then it's going to be a normal battle. It's still a battle, but it's a normal one, and it's going to take some time to get that momentum that we spoke of. But eventually, it will happen.
Right.
If you don't start and stop.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And it's always the first year. Dentists or prospective clients will call our customers, and our customers almost all say the same thing. Yep, didn't believe it either, hated the first year, but now you couldn't pry it from my cold dead hands. That's basically what they all say. They all say it's the best thing I ever did. It was that first year. All you have to do is get through that first year, and you're golden.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for the listeners on the other end, that's true for everything. Okay. You're not going to break into the radio market in 3 months. You're just not. You're not going to break into the TV market. You can pay $6,000 a month for Google AdWords. That's enormously untargeted and rather risky. You can put money somewhere else, but it's still going to take you time to really reach out to those highest qualified local people enough times to gain their respect and trust and to gain their attention. Right, Howie?
Exactly.
Right. That's the bottom line. Now, this is a good segue into we did budgeting. We did budget allocation. Okay, so you budget now. Let's say you did that for 1 year. Next year, let's take the same sample practice. Practice now. Okay, they didn't hit their goal of 800,000. They hit 700,000. Still, that's a great growth. So this year they are doing 700 and they want to get to 900. So their budget needs to be 35 to 45. But I want to go back to the first year. Didn't we already spend $6,000 for a website? We don't have to spend that again, right?
No.
Didn't we spend, $2,500 or $3,000 on SEO setup? We don't have to spend that again. We already spent for the first mailer design. We don't have to spend that money for a whole new mailer design again. So here's what happens. After your first year, you get that momentum going, and the momentum starts to pull through on the revenue. So your revenues start to go up, and then all of a sudden you're in your second year and you're budgeting just a little bit higher, not a lot higher, $5,000 a year higher. No big deal. But you already invested in that website, the SEO setup, and that mailer design. Your costs on the second year are going to go down dramatically. Now, what happens when your costs go down and your budget goes up? You get to put a lot more impressions on the street for the same amount of money. Right, Howie?
Exactly.
Now you're cooking with gas. Your second year, you got everything invested in. It's already up. It's running. It's tracking. You're seeing the results. You're seeing the money in the bank. Now you get to do more of what already works. Okay, that's when you start to get, that's when the doctors come to us and say, well, this is good. Now, how many households can I mail to? Or, how far out can I run my SEO? Or how many Facebook ads should I run? Or in other words, they start to get the idea behind doing it consistently, doing it in a diversified manner, and doing it without fear of what it costs because it's already budgeted.
Right.
And now we come back full circle to say the budgeting is the key. It's the key to the first year, and man, is it the key to the second and subsequent year.
We have many clients, Mark, as you know, that never go beyond those first foundational marketing meetings.
No, I would say that's most of our clients.
Yeah,
I know.
mean, you don't necessarily assume that radio and TV and billboards are in your future. You may never need them.
No.
And you probably won't unless you're in a very competitive area, very highly urban area. But even if you are, you still have to start with the basic foundational mediums as we've described.
Yeah, and there might be other reasons too. You could be in a great market, but we've run into dentists many times in our career where they just want to, excuse the French, but they want to kick butt and take names, right? So they want one office this year and 3 offices by the end of next year.
Yep.
Right? So when we run into a doctor like that, we may say to that doctor, okay, doc, well, you're not normal, but, are you willing to go with a 7%, marketing budget? And 90% of the time their answer is sure, no problem. Let's go. Yeah. After our work is done, after the design, the production, after all that stuff is done, if all that, the rest of the budget is spent on putting impressions on the street, really the only difference between, the doctor that wants to grow in a stair-step fashion and someone who wants to grow in a very aggressive fashion, the only difference there is money. How much money can you spend to put how many messages on the streets?
Exactly.
So that is, in a nutshell, one of the many, 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 many mistakes. Well, we're not going to call them mistakes. We're going to call them faux pas. Some other word besides mistake. But some of the ways that dentists can kind of get in their own way and make their own marketing fail is budgeting. And we would encourage everyone listening to this, whether you're a client or not, doesn't matter. Anybody's client, it doesn't matter. Calculate your budget at least once every 12 months. And if you're growing aggressively and that's the path you want to be on, maybe even once every 6 months or once every quarter, and then make sure that you're staying within your low and your high range at all times in the right promotion mediums. You're going to do great.
Well, okay. Thanks for listening, everybody. We're about done today, so we're going to say so long until next time.
Sayonara.
We hope you've enjoyed our podcast today. You can find more podcasts on our YouTube channel, on Stitcher, and iTunes. Also on our websites dentalwebcontent.com and New Patients